My cousin and wife had a baby behind my back. When I refused to cover their mess, my mother showed up at my shop screaming I was destroying the family. When I saw his name pop up on my phone, I just stared at it for a second, like it might disappear if I blinked. Caleb Barnes. That name used to mean family. Now it just made my stomach tighten. My name is Darren. I'm 38 years old, and I live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I run a custom auto restoration shop. Built it from scratch, muscle cars, classics, the occasional hot rod for a collector who still remembers how engines used to sound. I'd made a decent life for myself, quiet but solid. So seeing a message from Caleb, after all these years, was like opening a dusty box in the attic and finding something you didn't realize you were still angry about. Hey, man, been thinking about you. I know it's been a long time, but I'd love to catch up. I think we've both grown up a bit. I miss you. The family does too. The family. That stung. Growing up, Caleb was like my brother. He moved in with us when he was 11. His mom was struggling with some stuff, so my parents took him in for a while, which turned into almost 7 years. We shared bunk beds, ate the same cereal. He called my mom Aunt Patty, but she treated him more like a son than me. And Grandpa? Forget it. I was the ghost in the room when Caleb was around. Grandpa taught him how to fish, handed him his old baseball glove, even gave him his coin collection. I got a sweater from Goodwill and a reminder to be thankful. I almost deleted the message. But then I thought, maybe it was time. Maybe Caleb had changed. Hell, maybe I was the one holding on too tight. I told myself people grow. I told myself maybe he really did miss me. So I texted back. Short and simple. Sure. Let's talk. A week later, he was at my house. Brought a six-pack and that crooked smile that used to get him out of every jam. This place is great, man, he said, looking around. Seriously, I'm proud of you. I introduced him to my wife, Lena. She's a landscape designer, sharp and kind and smarter than I deserve. Caleb turned on the charm like it was second nature. It felt weird. Familiar, but off. Like trying on a jacket that almost fits, but not quite. Still, I let him in. Because deep down, I wanted to believe the past could stay in the past. At first, Caleb just stopped by once a week. Usually on Sundays. He'd bring donuts or some local craft beer, hang around for a couple hours, talk about his new job in construction management. Lena liked him well enough. He's funny, she said once. Good energy. I get why you were close. I didn't say much. Just nodded and tried to believe that things were fine. But then it went from Sundays to Thursdays too. Then he'd just be in the area and swing by on a Tuesday. A couple times I came home from the shop and found him on the couch with Lena, laughing at something on the TV. Once he was helping her repot a plant in the backyard. I remember standing in the doorway watching them, his hands covered in soil, hers brushing hair out of her face as she laughed at something he said. They looked like a couple out of a magazine. I told myself it was innocent, friendly, but it felt wrong. Is he over too much? I asked Lena one night while we were getting ready for bed. She looked at me like I was being sensitive. What? No, he's just being nice. It's not like he has a big social circle here. I nodded, swallowed the doubt. Maybe I was just being possessive. He was family. Kinda. But the jokes started getting weirder. Inside jokes, between him and Lena. One night at dinner, she said something about the basil being Caleb approved, and he grinned and said, "You should have seen her face when I told her about that pesto disaster in college." I didn't remember telling him that story. Then there was the night we were all watching TV and a baby commercial came on. Some dad fumbling to install a car seat. Caleb laughed and nudged Lena. "You better hope Darren reads the manual before your turn comes." I stared at him. "We're not even pregnant," I said. Yet, he replied with a smirk, like he knew something I didn't. That night I couldn't sleep. Lena was out like a light, breathing soft beside me, and I just lay there staring at the ceiling. Something wasn't sitting right. I kept thinking about the way he looked at her when she talked, like he was already part of this life I built. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to sound paranoid. A few weeks later, Lena sat me down in the kitchen. She was holding her phone in one hand and a pregnancy test in the other. "I'm pregnant," she said, smiling carefully. I blinked. That's great. It should have been. We talked about kids. We wanted this. But something twisted in my gut. Caleb was the first person she texted. She didn't even try to hide it. He texted back right away. "Told you it had happened soon," winky face. I told myself I was being ridiculous. I told myself to trust her. But that night, while she slept beside me, I sat in the living room with a beer, staring at nothing, wondering when my own house had started to feel like it wasn't mine anymore. The night I found out, the house was dead quiet. Lena had gone to bed early, claiming the pregnancy was wearing her out. I stayed up, sitting at the dining table with my laptop open, half-heartedly browsing through restoration parts one didn't need. My mind was somewhere else, everywhere else. It had been eating at me for weeks. The way she smiled at his texts. The way she got quiet when I walked into her room, and they were talking. The way I'd started to feel like a guest in my own marriage. I don't know what I was looking for when I reached for her laptop. I told myself I was just going to check the weather. But my hands moved on their own, like they were chasing something my heart already knew. Her email was still open. I didn't have to guess the password. She trusted me. Or maybe she just never thought I'd check. The first message was from him. Subject line, next life, huh? I clicked it. My breath caught. I know this wasn't what we planned, but part of me hoped. Maybe if things were different. Maybe if we'd met before. But hey, next life, right? I felt like the floor had dropped out beneath me. There were more. Dozens. Hidden under an email folder labeled photos, like some kind of sick joke. Weeks worth of messages, texts, even a draft with dates circled. Dates when I was out of town for car shows or deliveries. They'd been sleeping together. While I was at work. While I was busting my ass to pay off the mortgage early. While I was planning a nursery. And the baby? He wasn't mine. I couldn't read anymore. I just sat there, the light of the screen flickering off the glass in my hand. Around midnight, I walked into the bedroom and turned on the light. Lena blinked awake. What's wrong? I held up the laptop. You want to tell me what this is? She looked at it, then at me. Her mouth opened, then closed. I was going to tell you, she whispered. When? After the baby. We didn't want to hurt you. Oh, well, that makes it okay, then, I said, my voice cracking. You were just waiting for the right time to shatter me. She started crying. I walked out. I didn't pack much, just enough to get through the night. I drove to a cheap motel on the edge of town and sat in the parking lot until the engine went cold. I called my mom, the last thread of hope I had left. She answered, voice soft with sleep. Darren? What's wrong? I told her everything. The cheating. The baby. All of it. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, you need to be the bigger man. Mistakes happen. Caleb's been through a lot too. I almost dropped the phone. That's when I realized I was completely alone. Betrayed by my wife. Betrayed by my cousin. And now, even my own mother was siding with him. I hung up, pulled the key from the ignition, and sat there, alone in the dark, trying to remember what it felt like to be loved. The next morning, I woke up to 12 missed calls and a string of texts from Lena. Please talk to me. We can figure this out. It didn't mean anything. Right. I didn't answer. I didn't plan to. I was already sitting in the waiting room of the law office I'd found online at 2 in the morning. Some guy named Ray Teagan. Small time, but sharp. The kind of guy who doesn't flinch when you say, I want a divorce. Now, Ray nodded, asked a few questions, then leaned back in his chair. You have proof. I slid the USB drive across the table. Emails. Messages. Dates. Names. The works. He gave a low whistle. This'll get messy. I nodded. It already is. By the end of the week, the paperwork was filed. I moved into the guest apartment above my shop. Cramped, no insulation, smelled faintly like oil and dust. But it was mine. And quiet. Lena tried to call, text, even showed up outside the shop once. Caleb was with her, standing a few paces back like some coward who'd lost his voice. I didn't come out. One of my mechanics told them to leave or he'd call the cops. That felt good. The worst came during the divorce meetings. Lena's lawyer started tossing out words like emotionally aggressive, erratic behavior, controlling partner. I sat there, arms crossed, watching her pretend I was the villain. They were trying to flip the script, turn betrayal into victimhood. Caleb even had the nerve to submit a statement. Claimed I'd always been competitive with him and frequently undermined Lena's confidence. My own family trying to paint me as unstable. My aunt and uncle backed him up. Darren always struggled with emotions, one letter said. Caleb was just trying to be a good support system. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was living in someone else's nightmare. But Ray, God bless him, fought back hard. He kept me grounded. Kept the facts front and center. In the end, I kept the house. The workshop. My savings took a hit, sure. Lena got half of our joint account and a portion of some stock I'd been saving. But I walked out with the things I built. With what mattered. The silence afterward was deafening. I went whole weeks without hearing from a single person I used to call family. Even my mother stopped checking in. I think she was embarrassed. Or maybe she just didn't want to admit whose side she'd really picked. I buried myself in work. Welded, painted, stripped frames down to bare metal. It helped. Made sense in a way people didn't. Each day, I'd watch the sun rise over my shop's roll-up doors, and for a moment, I'd feel steady. Like I was starting from scratch, but on my terms. They thought they'd break me, but all they really did was set me free. It started with a voicemail from my mother. Darren, I know things have been hard, but Caleb's struggling. He lost his job and the baby's due soon. They could really use your help, just for the baby's sake. I didn't respond. She tried again 2 days later. Left another message, crying this time. He's family. You two grew up like brothers. I don't understand how you can be so cold-hearted. Cold-hearted. That was rich coming from the woman who told me to be the bigger man. while my life was falling apart. A week later, Caleb showed up at my shop. No warning, no message, just walked right through the open bay door like he owned the place. I was under a 71 Barracuda, tightening a suspension bolt when I saw his boots shuffle up to the lift. I didn't say anything, didn't even look at him, just kept turning the wrench. "Hey," he said, like we were still cousins, like nothing had happened. I slid out from under the car, wiped my hands on a rag, and stood. He looked thinner. Greasy hair, dark circles under his eyes. He smelled like sweat and desperation. "Can we talk?" he asked. "You're talking." He glanced around, like maybe one of my guys would back him up. But it was just the two of us. "We need help, man. I lost my job. The apartment's behind on rent. Lena's working part-time, but it's not enough. My truck broke down and the baby's due in 3 weeks. I'm asking for help." I stared at him. "You're asking me?" He nodded. "I know things got messy, but messy?" I cut in. "You slept with my wife. Lied to me. Tried to take half my life away. And now you want money?" He shifted, his voice tightening. "Look, I get it. But you have a good thing going here. You've always had a good thing going. Maybe you could share a little, just until we're back on our feet." I shook my head slowly. "Not happening." His face twisted. "You're really gonna let your own blood suffer?" "You're not my blood," I said. "Not anymore." He took a step forward, voice rising. "You've always been jealous. Admit it. Grandpa liked me better. Mom liked me better. Lena, hell, even she picked me. Maybe instead of playing the victim, you should ask yourself why." I stepped closer. "Say another word and I'll call the cops." His mouth opened, but he thought better of it. He stood there for a moment, breathing hard. Then he turned and walked out, slamming the shop door behind him. I stood there for a long time afterward, rag still in my hand, engine oil on my shirt, heart pounding. He thought I was weak, that I'd always be the one who forgave. But this time, I meant it. He would not crawl back into my life and drag me down again. Not now. Not ever. 3 days after Caleb's visit, my dad showed up. He hadn't called, just knocked on the side door of the shop while I was sorting invoices. I almost didn't answer, but some part of me still thought maybe, just maybe, he'd come to check on me. Maybe he wanted to ask how I was holding up. He didn't. I opened the door, and there he stood, baseball cap in one hand, that weathered frown I remembered from my teenage years etched into his face. "Got a minute?" he asked. I stepped aside but didn't offer coffee. Didn't offer a seat. He looked around like the place was unfamiliar. Like he hadn't come to my shop's grand opening 5 years ago and bragged to his coworkers that his boy built this place with his own hands. Funny how selective memory can be. He cleared his throat. "Your mother's worried. Caleb too. They said you threatened to call the cops on him." I didn't say anything. Just crossed my arms. "I know it's not easy," he went on. "But we stick together. That's what family does." My jaw clenched. "Family?" He nodded like that was supposed to mean something. "You mean the people who backed the guy who blew up my marriage? Who stole from me, lied to me, tried to drag me through court, and now show up asking for favors?" His mouth tightened. "He made a mistake. He's trying to make it right. He's trying to make rent," I snapped. He blinked at that, but I wasn't done. "Where were you when I was sleeping above the garage, eating takeout 3 nights a week to save for this place? When Grandpa handed Caleb his old tools and told me I wasn't the hands-on type? When Mom looked me in the eye and said I should let it go for Caleb's sake?" Dad opened his mouth, then closed it. "Let me ask you something," I said, stepping forward. "If it were Caleb standing here, and I was the one who did what he did, would you be telling him to forgive me?" Silence. That's what I thought. He ran a hand over his jaw. "You're angry." "No," I said. "I'm clear." He tried to play the victim then, his voice softening, his shoulders slumping like the weight of the family was too much for him to bear. "I didn't come here to fight," he said. "I came here to remind you that blood is blood. And when things get hard, you don't shut the door on your own people." I stared at him. "You're right," I said. "Blood is blood. But respect? That's earned." He looked down. "You can tell Caleb and Mom the same thing I'm telling you now. You are no longer my family. I don't owe you anything. Not money. Not time. Not forgiveness." His face darkened. "You don't mean that." I opened the shop door. "I do. And you can show yourself out." He stood there for a second longer, then walked out without another word. That afternoon, I blocked every number with my last name attached to it. I'd never felt so alone, or so free. The following Thursday started like any other, orders to fulfill, customers dropping off restoration projects, my guys swapping stories while elbow deep in old engines. I was under the hood of a '68 Mustang when I heard shouting from the front lobby. Darren, I know you're back there." I wiped my hands on a rag and stepped into the office. And there she was, my mother, standing in the middle of my shop's waiting area, loud enough for the whole block to hear. Eyes red, hair a mess, dressed like she'd rushed out of the house without looking in the mirror. 2 customers sat frozen on the bench near the coffee machine, awkward and silent. "Mom, What are you doing here? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She stormed toward me, jabbing her finger in the air. What am I doing here? I'm trying to understand how my own son can be so heartless. So selfish. You think you're better than everyone now, is that it? Because you've got a business and a little bit of cash in your pocket. I glanced at my front desk assistant, who looked like she wanted to disappear behind the computer. Let's go talk outside, I said under my breath. She didn't budge. No. You need to hear this. Everyone should hear this. You're tearing this family apart. Your cousin's living in a motel. Your father hasn't slept in a week. And that poor girl, Lena, she's raising that baby without a dollar to her name. I felt the air leave the room. I knew she'd eventually try something like this, but not here. Not in front of customers. Not in front of my people. I nodded to my mechanic, James, who was already walking toward the front door. Ma'am, we're going to have to ask you to leave, he said gently. She looked at him like he'd just insulted the Pope. Don't you dare. Mom, I cut in, calm but sharp. You can cry, scream, throw whatever guilt you've got left at me, but it's not going to change anything. I didn't ruin this family. You all did. When you chose him over me. When you sat on your hands while he slept with my wife and then called it a mistake. You want to call me selfish? Fine. I'm selfish now. I'm selfish because I finally stopped letting you all walk over me. She blinked, stunned, like she hadn't expected me to fight back. Security's been called, James said quietly. If you're not gone in 2 minutes, they'll escort you out. Her lip trembled, but she turned and marched out, muttering to herself the whole way. I stood there for a beat, then turned to my staff and the few remaining customers. I'm sorry about that, I said. Family drama. Won't happen again. They nodded, but no one really knew what to say. That night, I went home and typed out a single group message to every name that used to mean something to me. Any further uninvited visits, messages, or phone calls will be treated as harassment. My attorney has been notified. Leave me alone. Then I turned off my phone, locked the door, and sat on the garage floor next to an old Harley frame, breathing in silence that finally felt earned. I thought the public meltdown at my shop would be the last of it. I was wrong. A certified letter arrived the following Tuesday, hand-delivered and signed for. I didn't even bother opening it inside, just sat on the tailgate of my truck, envelope in hand, flipping it over like it might vanish if I stared long enough. It didn't. Inside, a formal notice. Caleb and Lena were attempting to sue me. The grounds? Ongoing emotional damages and shared parenting burdens. They claimed I had verbally promised to support the child, regardless of paternity, and that I had created financial expectations during the marriage that I willfully abandoned. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so painfully predictable. They couldn't leech from me directly anymore, so now they wanted to squeeze it out of me through the courts. I didn't panic. I called Ray. You've got to be kidding, he said after skimming the first page. They're reaching. Can they win? He smirked. Not unless the judge believes in fairy tales. Still, he told me to get serious. Start documenting everything. Any old texts, voicemails, emails, anything that showed their behavior. He even told me to print the group message I'd sent after my mother's outburst, in case they tried to twist it into something it wasn't. That night, as I sat at my desk pulling up old files, an email popped in. From Caleb. Subject line. Let's not do this. I should have deleted it, but curiosity got the better of me. Look, man, I know we both said things. Maybe we didn't handle things right, but this can't be the way it ends. We're family. We were kids together. Don't let the lawyers turn this into something uglier than it needs to be. We can talk. Just you and me. I miss my cousin. No mention of Lena. No apology. Just a plea to step off the gas. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I clicked archive. They wanted to fight? Fine. But this time, I wasn't scared. I wasn't confused. I wasn't mourning anymore. I was ready. Because now, I finally understood something that took me far too long to learn. You can't reason with people who only see you as a resource. You can only cut them off and let them sink. It was overcast the morning of the hearing. A thick, gray sky that felt just about right. I wore a plain suit. No flash, no shine. Just clean, quiet confidence. Ray met me outside the courthouse with a nod and a manila folder so full it looked like it had grown muscles. They brought the circus, he said as we walked in. He wasn't kidding. Lena was already seated with her lawyer, flipping through papers like she didn't recognize the man whose life she burned to the ground. Caleb sat beside her, tie crooked, foot bouncing nervously. He kept glancing toward me, like we were old friends about to catch up over a beer. I didn't look at him. We weren't friends. We weren't anything. When the judge entered, everyone stood. My heart thudded once, heavy but steady. This was it. No more backroom whispers. No more text messages or guilt trips. Just facts. Lena's lawyer opened strong. Claimed I had set a financial precedent during the marriage. That I had assumed responsibility for the unborn child during Lena's pregnancy, and that my sudden withdrawal of support had caused emotional and practical harm. They even had screenshots of texts I'd sent about the nursery, proof, they argued, that I had taken on the role of father regardless of paternity. Ray didn't flinch. He stood, calm as stone. Your Honor, let's not confuse excitement about a future with legal obligation. My client was misled. He was faithful to a wife who betrayed him, supported a child he was told was his, until the truth came out. Then he dropped the hammer. He submitted the printed emails between Lena and Caleb, timestamped, explicit, undeniable. He showed the judge their false statements during the original divorce proceedings. He even presented a written statement from the paternity clinic confirming I was not the biological father. No room for gray areas. And let me be very clear, Ray added. They are not suing for the child's sake. They're suing for convenience, for lifestyle preservation, for a man they used and discarded. The judge sat back for a moment, flipping through the stack of documents. Her expression didn't change much, but I noticed her eyes pause on one message from Caleb. We'll just wait until after the baby's born. He doesn't need to know it's mine yet. The courtroom was silent. When she finally spoke, her voice was sharp, clipped, and final. Mr. Barnes, Ms. Fields, you have provided no legal basis for the suit. Emotional harm is not compensable when your own deceit caused the situation. The request for additional support is denied. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Lena's mouth parted slightly, like she was waiting for a different ending. Caleb looked like someone had sucker punched him. Ray leaned over and whispered, that's game. We walked out of the courtroom without a word. No theatrics. No eye contact. Just the heavy sound of our shoes echoing down the polished hallway. Outside, I finally exhaled. Ray clapped me on the shoulder. You did good, Darren. I just told the truth, I said. Yeah, he replied. But sometimes that's the hardest thing to stand on. I watched Lena and Caleb come out a few minutes later, avoiding the reporters at the steps, ducking their heads like kids caught cheating on a test. Let them hide. Let them explain it to the world. Me? I walked down those courthouse stairs a free man. For the first time in years, justice didn't just feel like an idea. It felt real. And it felt damn good. It had been about 6 weeks since the court hearing. My shop was running smoother than ever. I was rebuilding a '59 Bonneville for a collector down in Louisville, slow, satisfying work. The kind of project where you lose hours in the rhythm of metal and grease and old bolts that don't want to budge. That's where I was when the call came in. Unknown number flashed on the shop phone. I almost let it ring out, but something told me to answer. Hello, Darren. The voice was thinner than I remembered. Older. My aunt. Caleb's mother. I hope this isn't too forward, she said, already apologizing before getting to her point. I think it's time. Time for what? She sighed. To make peace. The family's hurting. Your mother's not sleeping. Caleb's struggling. Everyone's worn down by all this bad blood. I waited. Let her say what she needed to say. He's still your cousin, Darren. That baby, he's still family. And family forgives. There it was again. That word. Family. Always the same script, like the blood relation itself erased every betrayal. I leaned against the workbench, staring at the half-assembled engine in front of me. It was clean. Predictable. Honest. It didn't lie. Didn't sleep with your wife. Didn't ruin your life and ask you to forgive it later. You had your chance, I said quietly. All of you did. You chose comfort over truth. You let Caleb take what he wanted and told me to get over it. Not one of you stood up for me when it mattered. There was silence on the other end. Then, I think you're being bitter. I laughed once. Not mean, just tired. I'm not bitter. I'm clear. I'm peaceful. She didn't know what to say to that. So I told her, I'm not angry anymore. I'm not out for revenge. I just don't want to be in that world anymore. The one where people treat me like I'm disposable and then act shocked when I leave. More silence. I hope you all find whatever you're looking for, I said. But you won't find it here. I hung up. That night, I stayed late at the shop. Pulled the old motorcycle frame out from the back, an old Norton I'd been meaning to work on for years but never had time for. I scrubbed off rust, sanded the gas tank, set the parts out in neat rows like a puzzle waiting to be solved. And I worked. Alone. Quiet. Focused. Every click of a wrench, every spark of the welder, every breath of grease and metal, it all felt like therapy. Like restoration. Not just of a bike, but of myself. I didn't need apologies anymore. I didn't need people who couldn't see my worth until they wanted something from me. I just needed this. Peace. Not blood.